So the Sun published an article by Matt Wilkinson, who is basically their royal expert there, claiming that final traces of Harry and Meghan are going to be wiped from Frogmore Cottage as their $2.4 million revamp is reversed 3 years after their eviction. The Daily Mail took this article that literally gives us no information whatsoever, and I'll show you exactly that, and put it behind a paywall and said that their Soho-inspired makeover of Frogmore and that final traces of them are going to be wiped, and that includes a $5,000 copper bathtub, a $500 artwork, and Diana's portrait. Okay, yeah, Harry left his mother's portrait in his former home. Sure. Now, there is literally no trace of the Soho-inspired claim that the Daily Mail makes. No, they actually got that from a January 2019, see, I'm hiding the date, article from Vogue Australia claiming that Harry and Meghan's interior designer spills on their new home. Except, no, they didn't, because it says the designer is thought to be Vicky Charles. This was something that they never ever found out was true or not. And the only reason that they claimed she would be their interior designer is because she knows Harry and Meghan, and she is a member of Soho House, where Harry and Meghan had their first date, because they are also members. So back to this article from the Sun, the 2.4 million, and you can go back and you can read everything about this that they knew or were leaked about, everything that Frogmore needed. And you will learn that Frogmore became a servants' quarters and was split up into like 5 separate areas for people to live. And it had been sitting for like 20 years, maybe more, and there was no electricity in it. And if you are not running electric in a home, if it's dilapidated or empty, there's no, temperature control. So walls will start to crumble, floors will start to fall in. Excuse me. It's basically, they had to redo the entire home inside. Not to mention they had to update HVAC systems because a newborn was going to be living there. They had to probably tear out the ceilings and replace them because mold had probably formed because of the moisture. But every article will tell you that the only thing the 2.4 million paid for was fixtures and like literal, architecture. That's another word I'm thinking of. The inside of the house, the walls, the floors, and fixtures. And yes, a tub does count as a fixture. I'll give them that. But we don't actually know what, or if Harry and Meghan, what kind of tub they got for any of the bathrooms in Frogmore. The Daily Mail claims that it was a $5,000 copper tub, but the only reason that they're saying this is because Vicky Charles's decorations aesthetics. This is never proven. They're just guessing and claiming it's true. Now, for the best part of the Sun article. Matt Wilkinson says options are being looked at and assessments are being done. Literally nothing has happened. They haven't done anything. They haven't even put an outline to paper. They're just thinking about what they're going to do, because the third paragraph says that the expensive renovations that it needs, it doesn't, will bring it back to the pre-Meghan and Harry era. If it was brought back to the pre-Meghan and Harry era, they would have to basically tear up all those new floors, all those new walls, and take out the HVAC system and basically turn it back into a dilapidated home that is unfit for humans to live in. So, probably not going to do that. Also, I forgot to mention that the $500 artwork and Diana's portrait, that would not have been in the 2.4 million of the renovations, obviously, and was most likely already shipped back to Montecito when they were evicted 3 years ago. So, besides the claim for the copper bathtub that we actually cannot confirm, and neither can they, the last two things, they weren't in that house. They were gone when Harry and Meghan were.
Can we please remember that Meghan and Harry had to flee the country with the help of Tyler Perry and his security and his homes and his money basically at the time, because they didn't have access to any of that. And now their house is sickening. Every time we get little glimpses of it, we can just see that it is like a garden of beauty and delight. I love pergolas with climbing vines like this. I think it's so cool. And to have this by your pool, to have a pool, to have their big garden and all of their palm trees and their big ass house with all the bathrooms that the tabloids can't stop talking about. They really have a lot to say about those bathrooms. And also the reason I think why Kate and Will wanted Forest Lodge, because it was a big house with a big property and they wanted to compete with this gorgeous delight. But they'll never have the California sunshine. It is so beautiful there. They're just swimming there to their heart's content. I'm jealous. To think that they had to flee the country with the help of someone else, but now live like this. They really did that.
You know what's funny about this whole Frogmore Cottage drama? The royal family keeps telling people, oh no, there was no problem with Meghan, we welcomed her. Meanwhile, every few months another story pops up that makes that claim look shakier than a plastic chair at a barbecue. Let's talk about Frogmore. Imagine somebody gives you a house as a wedding gift. Nice, right? Sounds generous. Then you arrive and realize the place looks like it lost a fight with time itself. Pipes, walls, repairs, the whole package. So you and your spouse spend millions fixing it up. Not royal money, not palace money, your money. Then life happens, you move away, and before you can even finish unpacking your boxes somewhere else, you're told to hand back the keys. Fine, annoying, but fine. But now imagine the same people turn around and say, actually, we're going to rip out everything you paid for and pretend you were never here. That's not normal behavior. That's the kind of thing people do after a messy breakup when they're deleting photos at 3 in the morning while listening to sad music. At some point, you have to ask who is really struggling to move on here. Because Harry and Meghan are in California raising kids, signing deals, launching projects, and living their lives. Meanwhile, every other week there seems to be a fresh effort to remove their fingerprints from a building, a website, a family photo, a balcony appearance, a Christmas card, or whatever else happens to be causing palace heartburn that day. Regular people look at this situation and see something simple. If somebody spent millions improving your property, most people would say thank you. The royal approach seems to be thank you, now please disappear. And here's the part that makes me laugh. They can renovate walls, they can replace furniture, they can repaint every room from floor to ceiling, they can probably install enough new wallpaper to wrap the moon. But none of that changes the story. People already know who lived there. People already know why they left. People already know who got kicked out. You can't bulldoze public memory. That's the problem. The more energy spent trying to erase Harry and Meghan, the more attention gets drawn to Harry and Meghan. It's like trying to put out a candle with a leaf blower. Congratulations, now everybody's looking. And let's be honest, if Frogmore Cottage suddenly becomes available and nobody in the family is rushing to move in, what exactly does that tell us? Maybe the issue was never the cottage. Maybe the issue was always the people who lived there. Because normal families don't spend years acting like a married couple moving overseas is some sort of international emergency. Most families would say, safe travels, call us when you land. This family somehow turned it into a decade-long soap opera. At this stage, the palace looks less like a confident institution and more like that one ex who keeps checking your social media while insisting they've completely moved on. Sure, nobody believes that. And the wildest part, Harry and Meghan don't even have to do anything anymore. The attacks keep coming, the headlines keep coming, the complaints keep coming, and every single time it reminds people that the couple everybody was told would become irrelevant somehow remains the subject everyone can't stop talking about. That's got to sting, a lot more than a cottage renovation ever could. The cottage that became a symbol of royal rejection. You know what gets me about this whole Frogmore Cottage mess? The sheer audacity. Seriously, imagine spending millions fixing up a house, making it a home, putting your own money into it, only for somebody to come along later and basically say, "Thanks for the upgrades, now hand over the keys." That's not a reward, that's getting finessed. And that's exactly why so many people looked at King Charles's decision and thought, wait, what? Because from the outside, it didn't feel like a father handling a family situation. It felt like a landlord sending an eviction notice with extra attitude. Let's be real. Harry and Meghan didn't walk into some sparkling palace wing that was move-in ready. Frogmore needed serious work, the kind of work that makes your bank account start sweating. They poured millions into that place. Millions. Most people get stressed buying a new couch. Harry and Meghan were dealing with renovation costs that looked like phone numbers. Then comes the plot twist. Not only do they leave royal duties, but they also lose the home. Gone. Finished. Pack your bags. See you later. And suddenly the couple has no home base left in the UK at all. Think about that for a second. Whether you like Harry and Meghan or not, regular people understand what it means to lose a place that feels like home. That's where memories live. That's where your kids play. That's where your life happens. So when Frogmore was taken away, a lot of people didn't see a property dispute. They saw a message. And the message wasn't exactly subtle. What makes the whole thing even stranger is how much effort seems to go into proving Harry and Meghan don't matter. Because if they truly didn't matter, why all the drama? Why all the headlines? Why all the house drama? Why all the energy? Nobody spends years talking about people they've forgotten. That's not how life works. And here's the funny part. King Charles may have taken away the cottage, he may have taken away the address, he may have taken away the keys, but look at where Harry and Meghan are now. They've built a life, they're raising their children, they're creating projects, they're moving forward. Meanwhile, every new Frogmore story seems to drag the royal family right back into the same argument all over again. It's like trying to win a football match by confiscating somebody's boots after they've already left the stadium. The game is over, everybody went home, yet somehow you're still standing there holding the boots and acting victorious. At the end of the day, what sticks with ordinary people isn't who owned the cottage, it's how people were treated. And for a lot of folks watching this unfold, the Frogmore saga didn't make Harry and Meghan look small, it made them look resilient. Because not everyone can lose their home, lose their royal role, get blasted in headlines for years, and still keep moving forward. That's the part people remember. Not the cottage, not the locks, not the keys, the fact that they kept going anyway.
You know what's really funny about this whole Frogmore Cottage story? The UK media keeps acting like they've uncovered some earth-shattering scandal when, in reality, they're recycling the same Harry and Meghan storyline for the 1000th time and hoping nobody notices. Seriously, every few months it's the same formula. Find something connected to the Sussexes, add a dramatic headline, throw in a mysterious royal source, then sit back and watch the outrage machine start printing money. At this point, it's less journalism and more a television rerun that nobody asked for. Because let's be honest, if Frogmore Cottage is supposedly ancient history, why are some newspapers still talking about it like it happened last Tuesday? Why are they still dissecting curtains, paint colors, furniture, and floor plans years later? Who cares? Normal people are trying to pay rent, buy groceries, and survive utility bills. The media is out here conducting forensic investigations on a cottage. Make it make sense. What gets me is how every Frogmore headline somehow turns into another excuse to take a swipe at Harry and Meghan, no matter what the story is. Renovations, Harry and Meghan. Property changes, Harry and Meghan. A squirrel sneezes near Windsor. Some columnist is probably halfway through writing a Sussex article already. It's become predictable. And when something is predictable, people start asking questions. Because if Harry and Meghan are supposedly irrelevant, why can't certain newspapers stop talking about them? That's the contradiction nobody can explain. You don't spend years obsessing over people who don't matter. You just don't. The truth is, some outlets seem far more invested in Harry and Meghan than Harry and Meghan seem invested in them. Think about that. The couple is living their life in California, raising their children, working on projects, moving forward. Meanwhile, certain sections of the media are still standing outside the metaphorical cottage with a magnifying glass. It's weird. At some point, it starts looking less like reporting and more like an inability to let go. And here's the best part. The harder some headlines try to convince people that Harry and Meghan are failing, the more the public notices that they seem to be doing perfectly fine. That's why these stories often backfire. People read them and think, wait a second, if these two are supposedly such a disaster, why is everyone still talking about them years later? Good question. The answer might be that Harry and Meghan remain one of the biggest attention magnets in royal news, and attention pays the bills. So every old story gets dusted off, repackaged, and sent back onto the shelves. Same product, different headline. What regular people see isn't some devastating blow against the Sussexes. They see a media industry that can't quit a story because the story still gets clicks. And that's why every new Frogmore drama feels less like breaking news and more like another episode of a show that's been running for far too many seasons. The media keeps trying to convince everyone that Harry and Meghan are the past, but the fact they're still writing about them every week suggests otherwise. Alright folks, that's it for today's Royal Rollercoaster. Thank you so much for watching. I'm your host, Miles, and if you enjoyed today's video, laughed a little, nodded a lot, or shouted exactly at your screen at least once, do us a favor and hit that super thanks button. Every super thanks helps keep the lights on, keeps the tea flowing, and helps us continue digging through the headlines so you don't have to. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and join our growing community of sharp-eyed royal watchers. Until next time, stay safe, stay curious, and remember, sometimes the drama writes itself. We're just here to read it out loud.